Solving quadratics with the zero product property. So the zero product property is the first section we're going to be taking a look at in chapter 8. And yes, you do see the word solving, not just simplifying here, but solving. We are going to be solving in this chapter. So zero is the key word for this whole section. Zero product property. So here is a very quick warm-up. So how about everybody pause the video and take 1 minute and solve these 5 equations. Remember, when we're solving, we're trying to determine what will make the equation true. So let's solve. If x minus 5 equals 0, think about all that we learned from the beginning of the year. If x minus 5 equals 0, and we add 5 to both sides, we find that x equals 5. So our solution for number 1 is x equals 5, which hopefully you see a pattern forming here. If the first one has a solution of x equals 5, the second one, x plus 3 equals 0, minus 3 minus 3, x equals negative 3. And then it gets a little bit more exciting with 2x minus 1, but we're still going to apply our principles and properties of equality here. So if 2x minus 1 equals 0, then plus 1, 2x equals 1, divide by 2, x equals 1/2. So that's number 3, x equals 1/2. And I think I will scoot the next one right down here. 5x plus 3 equals 0, so 5x plus 3 equals 0, minus 3, 5x equals negative 3, divide by 5, x equals negative 3/5. So think about the question that we're honestly asking here. What number minus 5 equals 0? That number is 5. What number plus 3 equals 0? That's negative 3. What number that when we double it and take away 1 equals 0? Well, if we double 1/2, we get 1, and then 1 minus 1 is 0. Same thing here. What number times 5 plus 3 equals 0? Well, negative 3/5 times 5 is negative 3, and negative 3 plus 3 is 0. So if we keep up and we continue to ask that question, 2/3 of what is 0? So if I have a big, giant scoop of nothing, and I divide nothing into 2 smaller scoops of nothing, I still have nothing. So half of what number is 0? Well, guess what? X has to be 0. Why? Because 2/3 of 0 is 0. It's the same thing with the bottom. And we can get that if you want to write divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5, x still equals 0. So for the last two, we actually even get a solution set which includes 0. But think about that question. We have what number minus 5 equals 0. That's the question we're asking here. We were solving equations, and every single one of the equations were all set equal to 0. So I said earlier that 0 is the big word for this whole lesson. Every single one of these were set equal to 0. That's going to be a theme that we're going to see as we go through this lesson. So let's fill in the blanks here, and you should put these in your notes. So anything, any number, any expression, any variable, if it is multiplied by 0, it will be equal to 0. Because it doesn't matter how many hands of nothing I add together, and I can even dump in a big scoop of nothing, if I continue to add nothing to nothing to nothing to nothing and multiply by nothing, I still have nothing. So anything multiplied by 0 will continue to be 0 forever. This is the whole basic tenet of the zero product property. So take a good look for just a minute at number 1. It says -10 times 5 times x times 0 times y times -14 times z. What is that product? Well, because just one of the factors is equal to 0, and it only takes one. If just one of the factors is equal to 0, then the entire product is 0. Zero product property. If just one factor anywhere is equal to 0, then the entire product is 0. So, if we have binomial factors, x minus 5, x plus 3, x minus 7, and this is a monomial factor of x, what could possibly be values for x that will make this equation a true statement? So here's our same equation again. X minus 5, x plus 3, x minus 7, and x, all 1, 2, 3, 4 factors, all being multiplied together. We want that product to be equal to 0. Well, we're going to be looking for some possible solutions. And since there are 4 factors, there's going to be 4 answers. So let's take the first factor. The first factor is x minus 5. If we set x minus 5 equal to 0, we saw that in our little warm-up, then x equals 5. So if we put in a 5 there, and I'll plug it in right here. So 5 minus 5 is 0. 5 plus 3 is 8. 5 minus 7 is -2, and then x is 5. 0 times 8 times -2 times 5 is 0. Yes, it checks. So x could be 5. Take the second factor, x plus 3. If we put x plus 3 equal to 0, we get x equals -3. And if we plug it back in, we end up with -3 minus 5 is -8. -3 plus 3 is 0. -3 minus 7 is -10. And -3. 0. It checks because 0 is just one of the factors. So x could possibly be -3. So x could be 5. That would make it true. X could be -3. That would make it a true statement. Let's go to that next one. X minus 7 could be equal to 0. Therefore, x could be 7. So if we plug in a 7, we get 2 times 10 times 0 times 7. And yep, we've still got a factor of 0, so the whole thing's equal to 0. It checks. And then finally, let the last factor be equal to 0. So the last factor is x. What if x were simply 0? Well, then would we still get a 0 as our product? So that would be 0 minus 5 is -5, and 0 plus 3 is 3, and 0 minus 7 is -7, and if x equals 0, then that's 0. And if any factor in the whole product is equal to 0, then the whole thing is equal to 0. So x could be 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 possible solutions. 1, 2, 3, 4 factors, which I believe is exactly what I have reiterated on the next page. So once again, we have 4 distinct factors. And those 4 distinct factors are going to yield 4 distinct answers for this equation. And this may be something new for you. I'm going to write this as a solution set. So x contains the set 5, -3, 7, and 0. All 4 of those are distinct answers that will make that equation a true statement. That's the whole idea behind the zero product property. So as we conclude, let's work out these 5 quick questions before you get your homework assignment regarding this video. Solve these quadratic equations using the zero product property. When we have quadratic equations, we're going to be looking for just 2 answers. They may be distinct, maybe they won't, but we are going to follow the lead in what we just did in the last problem, and we're going to take each factor and set each factor equal to 0. So this first one's very simple. So if x minus 1 is equal to 0, x could be 1. If x plus 1 is equal to 0, x could be negative 1. That gives us a solution set of positive 1 and negative 1. So positive 1, negative 1. That's number 1. Let's do number 2. Number 2, take each factor, set each factor equal to 0. X plus 7 equals 0. X equals negative 7. X minus 5 equals 0. X equals positive 5. Put the answers in a solution set, negative 7 and 5. All right, why don't you hit pause and finish up with 3, 4, and 5, and then we can check them. Number 3. Remember, even though it's a monomial expression, still set it equal to 0. 2x equals 0. 2 times what equals 0? X is 0. And then x minus 10 equals 0. X equals positive 10. Our solution set for number 3 is 0 and positive 10. Notice I'm getting 2 answers for every single one of these. Number 4, set each factor independently equal to 0 to get our 2 distinct answers. So the first factor, 3x minus 1 equals 0, plus 1, 3x equals 1, divide by 3, x equals 1/3. There's our first solution set for number 4. That was our first factor. Set your second factor equal to 0. So minus 2, 5x equals negative 2. Divide by 5, x equals negative 2/5. Yes, we're going to get fractions, and fractions are our friends, and that's okay. So x equals 1/3, and x can also equal 2/5. So number 4, 2 distinct factors with 2 distinct answers. Last problem, number 5, set each factor equal to 0. 1/2 x minus 4 equals 0, plus 4, 1/2 x equals 4. Remember, if we want to undo times 1/2, the best way to undo a times 1/2 is to multiply by its reciprocal, which is 2 over 1. In this case, just 2. So the 2's cancel, the 1's cancel, x equals 8. That's our first answer, x equals 8. Second factor, 3x equals 0. Divide by 3, x equals 0. So our solution set for number 5 contains 8 and 0. So once again, let me remind you that our number of distinct factors are going to give us our number of distinct answers for an equation. And since we were just looking at all quadratic equations with distinct factors, distinct meaning different, we're getting distinct answers for those quadratic equations. Now, your homework is to go on iExcel and work on the zero product property skill, as well as you have a Google form to do for homework. You can find the links for both of those on your assignments page.